It's go time.
The boys are back. That's right, Florida Man Sports is here with another exciting episode. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. This is Florida Man Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Florida Man Sports.
Let's go.
Now, on today's show, we will discuss briefly the key acquisitions coming up in the 2025 season, free agents, all that good stuff. But before we do that, we have to put a bow on the season. Chris, I know everybody's already spoken about it, but you haven't got FM Sports take. The Super Bowl,
right.
Super Bowl 59, Chris, what do you take away now that the season's over from that particular game?
Absolutely. And please, of course, as always, like, share, subscribe, follow us. We're on all major platforms. But long story short, guys, the better team won. This is exactly what we wanted. And here at Florida Man Sports, we called it. We both picked Philly to win. I won't get into the logistics as far as the score because of the costly turnovers. The score kind of shifted. But short of that, we called them to win. We called a lot of like the yardage, passing, etc. And you got to be happy for the Eagles, man. And I think in general, especially from your comments last week, I think a lot of football fans are kind of back and they kind of agree with us with what we said. And that was that at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs did not deserve to be in the dance. And it showed during the Super Bowl. The better team won.
Yeah, 100% reminds me of what when TCU went to the national championship game and got destroyed. They had no business being there. Very similar. But my takeaway from this particular game reminds me of a time in college where a buddy of mine was dating a TA. Okay, he's dating a TA. This guy had access to the midterms, the tests. He was doing great. Ends up, not being the best boyfriend in the later on in the year, and they break up. Doesn't have access to those things anymore. And then what happens? He obviously bombs completely and just fails miserably. That reminds me of what the Kansas City Chiefs just saw from them. This team I had talked about on one-score games. If those one-score games were reversed, this team would have been under 500. They had no reason to be in this game, like you just said. Kansas City, which I get it, Mahomes is still good. I understand all that. But I do not want to hear from anyone, not from Mad Dog Russo, not from morons like Lewis, about how Mahomes is the GOAT. How you even say that he's in that conversation with Brady, even before this game, is ridiculous. But after this particular game, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it, Chris. This guy choked, had the worst game of his career. And you don't have to always win the Super Bowl. Obviously, Brady lost 3 Super Bowls. Won Super Bowl 9 times with the Patriots and lost 3 of them. So it's not like you have to. But he performed at every Super Bowl. The first Super Bowl, not so much. I think he threw for like 150 yards.
I don't know, not to cut you there, Johnny, but I don't know. I don't because you're a little Patriot rant.
You're hating on
no,
me.
you're Patriot rant.
No, you're hating.
But look, ultimately, I think we both had the same consensus here that this wasn't going to define him as the greatest of all time.
I disagree. People were talking about that.
No, I'm talking
three-peat.
about what we thought about it in perspective here at Florida Man. And at the end of the day, look, he is, and I said this before, I'll say it again. You could make the argument for top 5 right now, sure, because of the Super Bowl appearances. I can give you that. It'd be a very hard argument. I could give you that. I can give you first ballot Hall of Famer. He's making the strong resume to do that. So give him his reward, give him his flowers, but don't sit here and tell me that he's the GOAT or was even in competition to be the GOAT just because he was going to hopefully do a 3-peat. So I agree with you. He wasn't worthy to be top 3. We're talking about top 5.
86.9 passer rating in the Super Bowl. 10 touchdowns, 7 picks, 2 horrible losses. Horrible losses in the Super Bowl.
What was their team that gave him that loss? I can't remember.
I think we know who it is.
Bucks.
Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You gotta throw Brady in every time.
I'm going to, because even in his last loss, I'm just so tired of having real conversations with people who honestly look you in the eye and tell you right now that the Mahomes is better than Brady ever was already.
No.
Like, you've got to be kidding me. Obviously, he has a chance. He has a chance to go. And now he's dug himself in a little bit of a hole because not only does he have 2 horrific losses, he lost one of those to Tom Brady. He had the opportunity to face him, and they lost. And you're going to have people making excuses for him, do whatever you want. But that dude looked shook. He looked scared. He didn't know what the heck was going on this last Super Bowl. Credit to the Eagles' defense. But still, the dude made no adjustments. 0. Brady always found a way to make adjustments. In the last Super Bowl that he lost against the Eagles, the Patriots and Brady, the dude still threw for 505 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, the Super Bowl record with the yardage, and he never punted the ball. He still put his team in a position to win, but they just didn't. We can always rely on a quality GOAT quarterback.
Going back to this game, Johnny, which is what we're talking about here at Florida Man Sports.
I need to shut down these morons.
Going back to this game, I do have to ask you.
In case you forgot.
I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
Especially those that are always watching us here on watching our episodes faithfully, we thank you for that. You had said previously, episodes ago, I think maybe 3 or 4 ago, you said that they shouldn't have benched Barkley. How it's not worth it.
What did I say exactly?
Okay, so now
what did I say exactly?
What I'm asking you now is, are you ready to give the coach his flowers and say he made a great decision in benching him because they are world champions? Are you ready to apologize? Go.
No, I'm not going to apologize,
my God, bro.
Because that's exactly what I said.
Pride is ugly. Pride is ugly on you.
What I had said, Chris, I like when you like to go ahead and just take this out of context and do a little gaslighting. But what I said was that they have to win the Super Bowl to justify what they did. If they don't, it's a failure on Sirianni. It's a failure on the Eagles. It's a failure to Barkley because he would have been immortalized. Still, the dude gets the all-time record for a complete season rushing yards, including the playoffs, and gets a Super Bowl ring. Listen,
and takes a step forward towards Canton. Come on, man.
No,
come on,
100%.
Come on.
But I respect what ended up happening because they won the Super Bowl. Most top 10 rushing backs, most top 25 rushing backs of all time don't have rings. They really don't.
And can you give me my flowers then? If you're not going to give me my flowers for me calling the Eagles, even though I had a Ravens.
There's a G in it?
I had a Ravens Eagles Super Bowl. The Eagles made it, and at that time, you completely bashed me. Hurts, Brown, everything. Oh, new running back. How's that? You completely
bashed
me.
you on that?
Yeah.
No,
So are you ready to give me my flowers?
I bashed you on the Ravens.
I'm ready for my flowers.
I bashed you on the Ravens, saying that that Lamar is not going to do what he's going to do what he always does in the playoffs.
No credit here,
which
folks.
what he does.
No credit.
I don't care. I understand the guy has a good
I'm leaving
season.
the show. I'm leaving the show.
I was 100% right in terms of that. Hey, you called the NFC champion preseason. But then at the end of the day, you didn't call them preseason and win it all. We both failed. You called the Ravens to win it all. I called the Lions to win it all. Ultimately, we made the pick between the Chiefs and the Eagles. We saw that the Eagles were the better team. We were very clear. As long as the NFL allowed a clean game, just call it as it is,
right,
and the Eagles will win. And that's exactly what happened because they didn't get the chance. Every team in the playoffs the Chiefs faced, we said, the opposing team is a better team. They should have won. The Bills should have beat them.
Yeah.
They just, it didn't work out that way. Shoot, man. The Texans could have beat them. Every single team they faced could have beat them. I'm just glad that the NFL just heard the voices, heard the frustrated NFL fans.
Absolutely.
Said enough. Stop forcing this to happen. Just let the game play out. And we saw, like you just said, Chris, Kansas City had no business in the Super Bowl, and they proved it.
That's right.
All right. Now that the season's over, Chris, obviously it's in the rear view. I can't believe the NFL season is done. It's
that's the thing about football, right? All of us are already on to next season. Come on, man. Let's go. That's what we do.
100%. But let's turn our attention to, obviously, our Florida teams and what they need to do, Chris, in the offseason to compete for a chip. Let's go ahead and start with Jacksonville, Chris. What does Jacksonville need to do this upcoming season to actually compete for a championship?
Okay. First of all, take a step back, catch your breath here, because I will tell you what they need to do to get into the playoffs. You got to learn to paddle before you can swim. Okay?
I get it. But you're competing for a championship.
I got you. So let's talk about the Jaguars here. They're the 17th most cap space in the league as of right now. They're at $32 million. They've got 2 big ones here in Kirk and in Ingram. As far as clearing cap space, they're going to be cap casualties. It's going to happen the next coming days.
Yeah.
They're going to clear about $15 million. So when it's all said and done, you're going to have a new coach. They still don't have a GM, and you're going to have about $60 to $70 million to work with. And I think the roster right now already stands at 50, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So here's my outlook for them, Johnny. Number one is you're going to have $60 million. You had the owner who recently said that they want to be competitive. They overpaid for the head coach. So the question that I have is, are you going to put your money where your mouth is?
Okay.
You're going to clear $60, $70 million. What is that going to translate to for Trevor Lawrence? Well, I'm going to throw out some names real quick. Trey Smith, the guard for Kansas City, did not allow any sacks for Kansas City definitely the best person when you're trying to establish the run game, which Trevor Lawrence is going to need. And then as far as their biggest need in the offseason, Johnny, they're depleted. They're kind of like the Bucs, right? Cornerback, safety, all that secondary is depleted. You're losing people for free agency already. So DJ Reed, the cornerback out of New York, is the top one there. And then Javon Holland, the safety from Miami. He's 25 years old. He's the best safety available. If you have that kind of money, you hired a new coach, and everybody keeps saying that Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback of the future, then you're going to sign free agents and not just address it in the draft, to answer your question, Johnny. So that's what I want to see from the Jaguars. Put your money where your mouth is. And then last thing I'll say about this, we'll talk about Cohen, the coach for the Jaguars. You know, I hate when this happens, right? Where you get a new coach, but you still have the same quarterback. I hate that because you basically get a rental and you get a pass. So if Trevor, this is third time's a charm for Trevor, third coach now, right? This guru of offense. And so if he fails, then guess what? It's Lawrence's fault. Cohen gets a pass, and they draft another quarterback. So it's basically like a wasted year because it's a wait and see. So anyway, long story short, I've got 5 to 6 wins right now for the Jaguars.
Oh, calling the wins already.
5 to 6 wins. The way that it is, I want to see who they draft. I want to see who they sign, but you have to have a starting point, folks. It's the offseason. It's the offseason.
Dude, it's way too early.
You got to have a starting point.
You know they're going to make moves. It doesn't mean that they're going to make the biggest splash. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But moves will happen. To call wins this early is irresponsible.
Not calling wins per se like it's a guaranteed thing, but just to kind of tell you the floor. Just to kind of tell you the floor that they're on right now with Trevor Lawrence and with the 50-60 million in cap that they may have. You're at a 5-6 wins. Where do you go from here, Jacksonville? Listen, this is Florida Man Sports. I want them to be successful. Are they going to put their money where their mouth is? And are they going to address this team beyond the draft? Hey, pay some free agents. Let's go.
Well, I mean, they overpaid for Gabe Davis, and they're going to make some moves this upcoming season here. But let's be clear, Jacksonville isn't far from being a good team. They lost 10 games last year, 10 games, by an average of 4.7 points. 10 games that was decided by...
Because Peterson's a great coach?
It's a great coach. They had the 5th pick in the draft. Obviously, what they need, their D-line, O-line, cornerback. Their defense is horrible. 25th in rushing, 27th in scoring defense, 31st in total defense. They need to spend their money on their defense, period. I get it. They have some pieces offensively. They're going to lose some pieces offensively, like you mentioned. But at the end of the day, their money needs to be spent on their defense. You mentioned key players when you had spoken there, so I'm not going to allude to other players there. But it's simple. Your defense, guys. You can't be 25th, 27th, 31st in key defensive stats and compete for anything. So that's what Jacksonville needs to do. They stop nothing. They score nothing. They drafted corners last season that we talked about we didn't like. When they drafted the corners, we're like, we don't like the picks. They still need to develop those players. They'll have another year of development, but they have to spend their money on their defense, their secondary, the D-line, the O-line. Everything has to happen there. So forget your running back. Draft a running back. There's plenty of running backs. Tampa Bay drafted Bucky pretty late, and still he ended up being a quality back. So there's definitely running backs in there if Etienne is gone. But we shall see what they end up doing there. But you have to spend your capital and your draft picks on defense.
What are your thoughts on what I said before? Because I'm adamant about that. As far as you got Trevor Lawrence, and do you? Let me ask you this instead. Do you think Trevor Lawrence is now the third time's the charm here? Is he going to be the future for Jacksonville? It's an honest question.
They don't have a choice. Like I apologize, Jacksonville. I've given up on your boy. I've given up on him. But you guys paid him for some reason. We didn't need to. All that money. Listen, it very well could be, you can blame the organization. You can blame how they develop him. You can blame a lot of different things. It doesn't matter. They have to figure it out. This kid has to figure it out. They paid him the money, figure it out. So whether he gets the pieces or not, Brady didn't get the pieces. I know you hate me bringing up Brady all the time, but I'm like, look at the Super Bowl teams and the teams there. You
couldn't just one segment. You couldn't stop.
I went many segments, many episodes without, so I got to recover from all that.
Not for nothing, which is why I said the first free agent on top of my list is Trey Smith, because if you are going out, you paid him all the money, like you said, you got to give him a chance. People forget it. Protect the damn quarterback. Protect him. Give him the best opportunity.
Protecting the quarterback, get it, but this is a young quarterback who has mobility. So at the end of the day, you still want to protect him, obviously, but stop making that excuse. Jalen Hurts had to move around here.
He has a great offensive line, Johnny.
Yes, he did.
He's got a great offensive line.
Jaden Daniels did not. So Daniels did not have a great offensive line, and he still found a way to win Rookie of the Year, had MVP votes, had a great season. How's a rookie outshine Trevor Lawrence?
I don't
blows him out of the building.
You're asking the question. I don't want to muddy the waters, but you know this because you know football like I do. It's sometimes it's easier for rookies to do that because they don't have tape on them just yet. The next season is when we're going to see what happens if what you're saying is true. But I get what you're saying. The example is that it can be done, and I get the argument. But again, it's rookie year.
All I know is that the Commanders played in the division of the Super Bowl champions, competed with them, played with them, and met them in the playoffs, obviously.
Right.
But so he did what he needed to do. Chris, let's move on to Miami. What do they need to do?
So completely different situation for Miami. They're right now negative $11-12 million in the cap. The difference between Miami and Jacksonville, Johnny, is they don't have those big contracts to cut. The average contract to save cap space is between $1 and $2 million. The biggest one is $4 million. So that's not saying much when you're down 12. So if you know the NFL, what they're going to do is just restructure a whole bunch of contracts. That's what they're going to have to do to fix their financial situation. But with that being said, that really hurts. That really just tells you, Johnny, they're going to be very quiet during free agency. And they're going to try to build through the draft.
Same thing they did last year.
Yeah, and you know what, though? Last year, they won 8 games with Tua being hurt again, right? He didn't play the whole season. And now your team got worse on paper. You better have a great draft. So if Tua can play all season, which, again, it's an if, your team is not as good as it was last year. Right now, I know you don't like me to say wins, but you're basically at another 8-win season. And that's if you keep your coach. You have questions that your coach is going to keep his job. And
if they were going to get rid of him, they would have already.
No, I'm talking about this coming season. Like, in other words, like I have 8 wins for them, and that's even if they keep the coach. Because if they do bad, he could get fired during the season, is what I'm saying, this coming season.
If he goes on a horrific run, like a Jacksonville-type run, he's not last in the season. Yeah. But I expect if he does not have a good season for Miami to wait until the end of the season and give him the can.
Yeah, and so like I said, it's very very difficult to gauge Miami because you don't have much room to sign free agents, and you can't say that you're running it back because you didn't have a successful season. So hey, rock in a hard place, right? You better have one hell of a draft, Miami. Bottom line.
Surprisingly, Miami was top 10 in every defensive statistical category that matters. I was surprised by it. They lost their defensive coordinator to the champion Eagles, but so they were not bad defensively. I'm talking about total defense, rushing defense, passing defense, scoring defense, top 10 in all those categories there. But we all know this team lives and dies with Tua. So you got to protect this kid, even though can be a bit of a moron and likes to go head first when he's diving there. So that's on him. He has to go ahead and make sure not to be an idiot outside the pocket. But the Dolphins need to focus on their offensive line. They still have the same weapons. I personally think it's time to deal Hill. Hill running his mouth at the end of the season. Yes, he took it back. But listen, this dude is like Jimmy Butler. This is a Jimmy Butler situation that at least he learned his lesson and took it back a little bit. But he's just a distraction there. Waddle needs to be your clear number 1. Let's go ahead and draft your O-line, see what value you get later on in the draft in a wide receiver. Let's go ahead and get some picks for Hill. And I think it's time to move on from him. That's what I think Miami needs to do. Deal Hill, get some first-round picks, get rid of that money off the cap, and go ahead and have Waddle, who can be a number 1.
You're saying that plural, Johnny. So you're telling me right now that Hill would demand multiple first-round picks? I don't know any team that would pay multiple. One first, maybe a first and a second and a fourth, maybe. But no, I don't think he deserves 2 firsts.
It depends.
Not right now. Anyway.
Okay, there are teams who desperately need a Hill. Hill still, even though he didn't have the best season last year. Why? Because Tua was injured. With Tua gone, forget it. The motivation, everything's gone. Hill is still a number 1 wide receiver. We looked at what the NFL, what the Jets had given away for Adams. You're telling me Hill's not better than Adams? I think so. So I do think he will go ahead and demand multiple first-round picks.
I would pay it.
I'm not saying that even if you get a first and a second, still, first and second, get that money off your books, it's still worth it. Right. You still have Waddle there. I think it's time to move on from Hill, maybe hoping a draft day trade. But even if they don't,
I could see that.
O-line, we saw what they have a solid tight end in Smith who's going to come in there and really help out Tua. So with Waddle, with Smith being their primary, you still have a chain in the backfield. You still have Mostert, who's older, but still quality, still there. So we shall see what Dolphins offense looks like, but they need to spend their money protecting Tua, period. That's what needs to happen here, Chris.
Draft, they ain't got money, but yeah.
All right, Chris. So now, obviously, we went through those teams. Your squad, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa has been there, right there on the cusp. What do they need to do to compete for a championship?
Yeah, absolutely. Florida Man Sports Streaming on all major platforms. Always want to remind you to like and subscribe. And Johnny Cinco, first I want to start off by wishing a very happy birthday to Jason Light. Happy birthday, my friend. The greatest GM of all time for Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Christ.
We
Thank
did
you
save
for
the
adding that
best
last
for
little
last.
tidbit.
Look, at the end of the day, the Bucs cap situation right now stands at $5 million. Because Jason Light is so good at what he does, we have 4 friendly contracts that we already plan on restructuring. I'm not going to give you the numbers. Just know that they're going to be restructured. The bottom line is this. The Bucs are going to have about 50 to 70, maybe even $80 million in cap space, especially if we cut Jamel Dean. So we have a lot of options on this team. The thing about the Bucs, Johnny, and I know that you'll agree with me on this, and that's why we made the moves that we made, is that we're in win now mode. We are in win now. We want to win now. So here's what I expect to happen. First, I'm hoping that Davante David, if you're listening to this, you do decide to come back one more year. You played at an elite level last year. You were the most tackles on the team. You're a great player. Please give us one more year if you don't mind. We're going to re-sign Godwin. That's going to happen. So if we have Godwin and we have David, we still have a whole bunch of money. So here's what I expect for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Johnny. Trade for Myles Garrett. I'll say it. I'll rip the Band-Aid. Trade for him. Make the trade for Garrett. What? Go ahead. I have more. Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but this show has a format. Yes. So we're getting to the free agents, and that was one of the free agents there.
And we will. But who I have him going to
ruin my life.
Who I have him going to isn't the Bucs, which is why I'm saying that. This is what I want to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. But you trade for Myles Garrett. If you get Godwin and you get Davante David, you trade for Garrett. As far as free agency goes, Johnny, just real quick, I've got Milton Williams, the inside linebacker for the Eagles. The guy, now I understand Jalen Carter was there. He freed him up a lot. So we've got Vita Vea to free him up. He's excellent. So Milton Williams, and then I got Ernest Jones, the linebacker out of Seattle. He did more with the opportunity he had last season. He played at a Pro Bowl level. Those 2 guys, man, if we can pull them in free agency, if you're really ready to run it back and win another division title and get into the playoffs, this is what you need to do. I won't go over any other names. As far as schedule, we've got the 18th ranked schedule, so we're at the middle of the pack. And then as far as wins, I know you don't want me to throw them out there. We have right now.
Do it anyway.
We're at 10 wins right now. If you do what I say in free agency, folks, you're going to be a 12-win team. But the sky's the limit for the Bucs. We've got the cap space. We've got the team that's ready to win now. I'm expecting a huge summer by Jason Light.
What Tampa needs to do is clear. You mentioned some key names, and I appreciate that being a Tampa Bay lifer. They're 18th in total defense. Anything 18th, okay, middle of the pack, a little lower, ain't too bad. That's only because they were 4th in the Russian defense. Outstanding. Passing defense, 29th. 29th in passing defense, guys.
Right.
How you got to the playoffs, being the 29th ranked passing defense, is a testament to God's existence. Because ultimately, when you're ranked 29th in passing defense in a passing league, you generally have no business in the playoffs. So it's clear what Tampa needs to do. They need to revamp their secondary.
Through the draft.
Completely revamp their secondary. No, the draft, and through free agency, because your draft, you're still developing. It's very rare you're going to come across a corner. You saw what happened in Jacksonville, who wasted their first 2 picks on cornerbacks. And how did that work out for them? Maybe it'll pay off for them, this season or the next season coming up here if those cornerbacks develop. That's a big if. So ultimately, it's going to be a combination of the draft. It's going to be a combination of free agency, figuring things out. I'm hoping Tampa does it. Tampa's right there. Godwin re-signing is going to come down to dollars. Godwin's already he hasn't got the big payday because of the injuries. So if another team is willing to go ahead and pay him the money, I think Godwin's going to go. It's no disrespect to Tampa, but he's already given the discounts. He's helped win the championships. He's there. So if another team wants to go ahead and pay him the dollars, Tampa is going to have to match, and I am not 100% sure Tampa will. So we'll see. I'm hoping Godwin remains, but ultimately their dollars and cents need to be spent on the secondary.
And I agree with you that the secondary, obviously the stats don't lie, the numbers don't lie. You're not wrong, Johnny. The difference is, and again, as a Buck for life or whatever you just called me, I can tell you this. Our defense, Johnny, our secondary specifically, played, I think, 3 games all season together. You got to remember that. Remember, last year was injury after injury. So, no, what we need is to get healthy, which we're going to do over the summer. So, reusing what we have is my message for the secondary, and a good draft is what we need. The dollars and cents need to be spent on the linebacker because Davante David's not going to be there forever, and on the inside. Again, we can agree to disagree. At the end of the day, you're not wrong. The stats don't lie. But I'm just hoping that next year, to your point, the Bucs can actually have a healthy season so that we can see what these cornerbacks and these safeties can actually do that we have, because we have a pretty good crop.
Well, like you had mentioned previously, you guys are in win-now mode. So for you guys to go ahead and be like, oh, let me go ahead and draft these guys that can maybe develop into something, that's not really win-now mode.
In the example, though, think about it like this. In the example, that's like us signing a free agent this year, right? To your point, we get a safety, the best safety out there, right? And then he gets hurt. Then what, right? That's what happened last year is what I'm saying. We were depleted in the second. That's all I'm saying. It was injuries. It wasn't a player. It wasn't like Whitehead was playing terrible is what I'm saying. Then I would be like, you know what? You're right.
But that's exactly why you have your free agent pickup, you draft. You have to go all in on your secondary, because then you're still developing your guys while you're still picking up key free agents. So if, God forbid, those guys go down, you still have your first-round draft pick, your second-round draft pick coming in.
You need a little bit of lady luck. No, I got you.
Obviously, you do need the luck as well there. So
stay healthy.
It did there. But you got to revamp. You're not going to be able to do that again, Tampa, with the second to last or third to last passing defense. Not in the league, not in this league anymore. Passing defense, you need to go ahead and improve, guys. There's only one way to do it. Chris, well, we say goodbye to our Florida teams. We obviously briefly discussed what needs to happen. We feel needs to happen for those teams to go ahead and compete. But I'm going to give you some key names, Chris, here. Let me know where they will be playing next season. Let's start it off with your boy, Aaron Rodgers, Chris. Aaron Rodgers, where is he going to play next season?
1 second, Johnny. Breaking news here at Florida Man Sports. We just got confirmation that the New York Jets have said no, that we are passing on from Aaron Rodgers. It's officially been confirmed.
You have an earpiece?
Yeah, I do. It's okay. Invisible. But yes, so we know he's not going to be a Jet. The word was, unless you're living under a rock here, that they asked him to stay off the Pat McAfee show, that he can't be there and all that stuff, and I guess it didn't work out. So now they've asked to move on, which is a little strange for me, because Rodgers even admitted and said that he would be willing to, help out a drafted quarterback and kind of help him learn the ropes. So where does a 42-year-old quarterback go?
I know.
I'm gonna go out there on a limb here. I'm gonna go out on a limb, and if and it's a lot of ifs here, but if Russell Wilson doesn't go to the Raiders, I see that as an option.
Make a pick. Don't give me this.
No, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Don't say if this doesn't happen like that.
Right, because
you like to have like 3 or 4 picks you throw out there, so you can be like, tell me, I got it.
Because listen, I'm saying something.
Make a pick.
I'm saying something.
I'm ignoring that.
I'm saying something very controversial here.
Ignoring it. Say it.
If Russell Wilson doesn't go to the Raiders, he becomes a Raider. But if Wilson does, Aaron Rodgers will be without a team this coming season. If the position,
so you're telling me he's not signing with anyone.
If the position is filled,
I don't want to hear if the Raiders.
If the position is filled with the Raiders,
man.
He will be without a home.
So your position is no one. He's going to be home.
If it's not the Raiders, it's nobody.
He's going to be with nobody. Okay.
I mean, I've done.
So you're going with the Raiders.
Look, I've done the analytics. I've done the research. There is no team where he fits. He's going to want to start.
This is where you're wrong.
He's going to want to start.
This is where you're wrong.
Okay. Well, he's going to want to start, and if the Raiders don't go with unless that happens, right? If it's not the Raiders, it's nobody. Who do you got?
I do not have nobody.
All that. Oh, okay.
I don't have nobody.
All that.
What are you gonna say? I don't have anyone. Sorry, I didn't do any research on this. I just gonna. So sorry. No. Aaron Rodgers. I feel. And I looked at everything else on here. Honestly, I think he's going to the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans. If we looked at this team last season, preseason, we looked at them. We're like, man, this is a good roster. This is a good roster.
On paper.
And yeah, of course. Yeah. So a good roster on paper, and what a disappointing season. You also have their new coach. He's in hot water. He's there. He's trying to figure it out. Is Mayo Levis the answer? I don't think they're going to give up on Mayo Levis. I really don't. However, maybe he still needs to go ahead and get a look. You just alluded to what Aaron Rodgers said he's willing to do is help the young guy to go ahead and develop and work on them. So Aaron Rodgers comes in with a good roster. He still has Mayo Levis there watching. I think Tennessee's not picking up a quarterback in the draft. I think they're going to go ahead and pick up Travis Hunter and go ahead and still – with Aaron Rodgers in Tennessee, it just makes sense. It makes sense. It gives them like win now because they're in win now mode even with a new coach because they had the roster. The only thing they weren't sure about was sophomore slump with Mayo Levis. Clearly had a sophomore slump. So now let's go ahead and see what Aaron Rodgers can do with this roster. Guys, it's 1 year deal. You can give him a 1 year deal guaranteed, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, but only a 1 year guarantee just to see what he can do. And if anything, Mayo Levis, still on that rookie contract, has a year to look, study under Aaron Rodgers, and comes in afterwards. It just makes sense to me. Tennessee Titans, Aaron Rodgers.
That does make sense in conventional wisdom if you just have like a regular standard approach to doing things. But that's not.
A regular standard.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not the Tennessee Titans.
If you have a small mind,
this is listen.
Sorry, the better answer is nobody. He's going nowhere.
But listen, at the end of the day, you've got Cam Ward. You've got the number 1 pick. You are not passing what you consider to be generational talent. That's not. So they're not.
Okay.
That's not. Stop.
University of Miami. I watched a lot of University of Miami games. Cam Ward is good quarterback, but generational. He's not coming off like Caleb Williams.
Excuse me, sir. You had your chance.
Yeah.
And with the number one pick, when you draft a quarterback, more often than not, he's starting week 1. So that already right there just takes all the legs out and all the thought process of Aaron Rodgers playing there.
And I'm just telling you, I alluded to that they're not going to draft quarterback. I think they're going to trade that pick. They're going to clean up on picks. They're going to clean up on picks, picking Aaron Rodgers. If they've completely given up on Mayo Levis, we would have heard it. We would have heard it.
You're digging deep, and my sources tell me that they are moving on from him. They are going to move on from Levis, and I could actually see him getting traded for like a 3rd or 4th round pick at this point in the draft, but that remains to be seen. So again, we'll agree to disagree. I'll stand by my statement. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go out there and say that if Rodgers is not a Raider, he will not be on an NFL roster this coming season. And I think that's huge. That's huge.
There are teams that are desperate for a quarterback a la Giants. I can see them doing. They tried to trade up and get Drake May from the Patriots and would have given them the house. I think they're going to attempt to do something similar with Tennessee to move up to get what they need, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, whether it's Cam Ward. I don't know. These guys are not like generational talent. They very well be, but it's not like Caleb Williams came in as like such a hype. Such a hype. There's quarterbacks that come in that's such a hype.
Every year.
Yeah, not every year, but Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, they have hype, but not that type of hype to where people are like, no, there's still a lot of question marks. There are teams willing to move up to guarantee them to get that pick that they want, but I see Tennessee trading that pick. If they don't trade that pick, I see them picking up Travis Hunter and sticking with Mayo Levis, Aaron Rodgers. Just make me the GM. No, fix Tennessee, guys. All right, let's move on. We talked about Aaron Rodgers. Talk about his counterpart, his boy, Adams. Now, is Adams going to remain with the Jets, or is he going to retire and be done with, like you said with Rodgers, be done? He's not playing anywhere next year. Where's Adams be playing next season?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He's not going to be playing for the Jets. $38.3 million cap hit. They're not going to pay it. They're going to cut him. It's a formality. And so then the question becomes, one, where does he want to play? Because he's also one of those talented guys that he's talented. He can still produce, but he just has to have it up here, and he has to want to play, right? Mm-hmm. He's already said his mutual interest, and there is mutual interest in the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have said that they're interested, and he's interested in returning home. They've got the money to do it, which is probably the most important part. They're the only team that I have that has the cap space to take him in. He also did mention a few West Coast teams, but when you look at the West Coast teams, Johnny, and I'll just look at it here real quick, the San Francisco 49ers, Deebo has a situation. They're not looking to take on another contract. The Rams have Kupp. They're trying to get rid of Kupp. So they're teams that he just doesn't fit because they're already trying to move on with their wide receivers. So give me the Green Bay Packers. Give me the home reunion. I believe there's a stat out there that shows that they haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Adams. So long time coming. He's going to be a Green Bay Packer.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I have him going back to the Packers. Packers obviously going ahead and connecting with Love. Yep. He should have never left, but whatever. It was a mess. He still went. He tried new things. Doesn't work out. If he had stayed with the Packers, what this Packers team could have been. I mean, they've competing right there
It
every
turned
single
out that
season.
they offered him more money.
Yeah, it just ended up being
wild.
a mess where Rodgers kind of messed up the taste that he had. He should have just stayed there. But, it is. Sometimes, the grass isn't always greener. He saw it. He realized it. Time to come back home and see what you can do under Jordan Love and this offense there. So I agree. Adam's going back to the Packers.
Water your
there.
own grass.
Now, you mentioned them. Let's go ahead and talk about Cooper Kupp. Obviously, the Rams have already let him know, hey, we appreciate your service, but we will be looking to trade you. So where is Cooper Kupp playing next season?
Yeah, he's got $20 million in cap, $15 million of that is guaranteed. And the same thing with these wide receivers or these players, Johnny, that are 28 and up, in this case over 30. Teams are not going to clear cap space to take them on. If they have it,
I think there are exceptions to that.
Well, no, I'm saying that their exception is for the draft and for other things. In other words, they're not really looking at him and eyeing him for the season to make their team whole, is what I'm saying.
I disagree with you.
No, so and at the end of the day, people who are looking at him, they're win now teams.
Yes,
and so they're
100%.
trying they're trying to be like the Washington Commanders of last year, right? Look no further than the Raiders. You've got a coach in Pete Carroll who's not getting any younger. Going back to the cap space that I mentioned, they have the cap space now. They don't need to move money around for a guy that's in his 30s. That's my point there. And we're going to address the quarterback situation here in a minute, and we've kind of already alluded to it. So give me Kupp. He makes that offense better. Whoever the quarterback is there to win now is going to be there to help, even if it's a rookie quarterback, right? He spreads the field out by playing in the middle there, helps spread the game out. So give me Kupp to go to the Raiders.
No, I have Kupp going to two different teams, two options for you here.
No, Johnny, pick one. You don't hate when you do that. I need you to commit to one.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for. That's what I was waiting for on that there. Ideally, I really see him going to the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, they got to where they got. They don't have anybody. Obviously, with Cooper, just learn the offense there. Are they going to keep him next season? What they're going to do? I think they may. But because of still, they have some money issues. They'll have to move money around, restructure his contract. So just in case they don't restructure, not able to, I have him going to I was about to say the Redskins, the Commanders. Commanders obviously have all the money in the world. They sit there. They did everything that would just McLaughlin. McLaughlin is a good wide receiver, but they don't have a real number two. They need a number two solid. McLaurin, that's what it was. Sorry, I was thinking of Sarah McLaughlin. No, but Cooper Kupp, solid number two. Honestly, maybe even be number one there if he stays healthy in that team there. But I have him the Bills, Redskins based on the Redskins, the Commanders have all the money to go ahead and sign anybody they want. I think the Commanders are going to make a couple moves there because they got so close. They were missing a couple key pieces. That is one of those pieces there. So Cooper Kupp, Buffalo Bills, Washington Commanders.
Well, since you want to throw out two teams, I'm going to go more specific.
Okay.
For my Cooper Kupp analysis, I have a 90% probability he ends up with the Raiders, and I've got a 10% chance that he ends up with the Patriots. So that's my spread there, 90 and 10%. But
the Patriots do need a receiver for him. But I think if the Patriots are going to make a move, it's maybe a younger wide receiver we'll allude to. Let's go ahead and talk about younger wide receiver that's also available, Chris. Deebo Samuels has already let in the exit interview for the San Francisco 49ers that he is not happy, he wants out. So the guy who has a horrendous season, injury-prone, and now he's unhappy after getting the bag, and he wants out of San Francisco. Where's he going?
Yeah, again, Florida Man Sports streaming on all platforms. You know that here, Johnny, I do the analytics. I do the homework for you, so you can relax and be half talented. So he's going to go to the Baltimore Ravens. That is where he needs to be if he makes the right decision. That's where the Baltimore Ravens, that's who they should be looking at.
He'll have to restructure that contract.
No, he won't. $17 million available in cap space right now.
And they're going to give it all to him?
Well, remember, when it's right now, I said this earlier, if they have the cap space now, everything else they do will be for their draft picks and for everything else. So those are the kind of teams that you need to be looking at, right? So $17 million available right now, which means that if they did nothing, they could take it right now and then still clear up for other players. Boom. 32-year-old Agler. He had a good season last year, somewhat good season. He's gone. He's a free agent. So now, even if they bring him back, you got Flowers, Bateman, and now Samuels. If you look at what happened this year and why they lost, it was injuries on offense. Remember when Flowers went down with the injury in the playoffs? So for me, I've got an 86% chance probability. 86 that he's going to be a Raven. And then I have a 14% chance that he lands in Buffalo if it's not the Ravens.
We're in the for your main, your 86% chance. We're in the same division, but no, I have Deebo playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously under a great coach, what they were missing is and he's that type of wide receiver for them. He's a Hines Ward type of receiver, a tough, hard-nosed wide receiver. That's the type of player Pittsburgh is missing. They need that, and it's going to help whoever they decide to keep as a quarterback. So let's get right to it, Chris. Who is the Pittsburgh Steelers picking as their quarterback?
Golly.
So who are they picking as their quarterback, Chris? Are they sticking with the young buck and Justin Fields, or are they going with the old vet? You've already alluded to it.
Yeah,
go ahead and
it
let
really
me know.
depends on who you ask, right? I know you're asking
I'm asking
me.
you.
I know. But
Chris.
but just for what it's worth, if you ask Pittsburgh fans have been clamoring for Matthew Stafford. They want them to pull the trigger and make the trade, and that's what the fans want. And I'm like, why would you pay draft picks for a guy who's probably going to retire in a year?
Okay, Matthew Stafford.
I don't see it.
He's been linked to a couple of different teams, but he's not going anywhere. He's happy. Yeah. He's making commercials with his wife, and I'm like, that dude's going to play in L.A. or he's going to retire.
Well,
he's
not
unless
the Rams get an offer they can't refuse, because
then he can just retire. Be like, I'm not moving.
Well, that's what I mean.
Family.
It's a 1-year rental, which is why I go back to why would he want to?
Okay,
why,
so let me ask you
again.
Are the Steelers going with Fields? Are you saying neither? Are you saying neither?
I'm not saying that.
You're doing one of those things you did there with Rodgers there?
Now let's talk about the guys that are there. You've got Fields, who is in the last year of his contract this coming season. It would behoove me if you didn't go ahead and sign the man now, because he's going to get signed by somebody else.
Fields is not in his last contract there. This is the option. This is the option contract. Yeah. So basically, both of them are free to do whatever they want.
No.
If they pick up the option, Steelers still have the ability to pick up that 5th-year option.
Which they are. They
have not already. They have not decided.
They will. And the question becomes, do they re-sign him now? Before he hits the free agent market after the next season? Again, I get the intel, so don't worry. You guys will find about it in 2 weeks.
Actually, I think this was his 5th-year option.
So he has one more year in his contract.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, he does. And so that's the question, right? Is do you re-sign him now? Because if you do, then you're telling the fans that he is the future of your franchise. Funny enough, Russell Wilson has been going on a social media campaigning how he wants to be back in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you've seen the posts and all that.
So he's back there.
It's a lot of drama.
So who are they going with, Chris? My God,
a lot of drama in Pittsburgh.
45 minutes later. My apologies, guys.
I'm gonna
Where
say,
are they going?
That was your rant. That was your rant. They're loving this. That was your rant.
Yeah, so it is.
So I'm gonna say, because it's gonna happen. What happens with the Raiders here, and what's gonna happen with Rodgers?
Yeah, we already know.
I'm gonna say that Russell Wilson stays in Pittsburgh. I'm gonna say that Russell Wilson stays on a 2-year deal. 3-year max or 2-year option for a 3rd, and they're going to keep Justin Fields. They're not going to do anything that's shocking. They're going to extend him to keep him, and they're going to sign Russell Wilson to a 2-year deal. Okay. That's what I think's going to happen.
The owner has already said that it's highly, highly unlikely that they're going to keep both quarterbacks. Right. They're just going to keep one.
It is.
So for me, if you're asking me, Johnny, FM Sports, who they should go with, Russell Wilson. However, I do see them going for the younger quarterback. They're going to go with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields will end up being the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, which I think is a mistake, but they're going to need mobility. They're going to try to do something, so they're going to work on that angle there. That being said, that means Russell Wilson is going to be a Raider. I think Russell Wilson is going to go ahead back with Pete Carroll. They're going to go ahead and match up. They have a decent roster. Brock Bowers is a beast down there. Maybe some other pieces in place there are going to be there. Like, I don't think Cooper Kupp's going to go there. You know where I think he's going to go. But still, we picked up the key players that are in play here. You know,
and it's not that I'm not agreeing with you, right? It's either, for me, it's either Pittsburgh or it's there's no other option, right? Or it's the Raiders. There is no other option for Russell Wilson.
There are other options.
No. For me, in other words, where I think he's going, like, there's no other options. And then what happens with Rodgers if he stays, et cetera. So yeah, we're kind of on the same page. But I do think that there's an option there where they keep both, because ultimately, we'll see.
No chance.
We'll see. Ultimately, if the price is right, you got to make a smart financial move for your franchise.
There's no chance in keeping both. They somehow got through that season with both of them. Obviously, ended the season in a 5-game losing streak. I think 100% this was Russell Wilson's team. He had it. It was in play. That dude was balling out, looking good. And then they lost 4 straight going into the playoffs, and then losing the playoffs 5 straight games. You lose in a 5-game losing streak there. It's kind of like, all right, we saw what we did against premier talent. Yes, can we beat the schlubs of the league? Yes, but when we go against contenders, we're losing. So Russell Wilson gives you your best shot to win. Gives you your best shot to win regular season games. Your best shot to make it in the playoffs. But I don't think he gives you your best shot to win a championship. So at the end of the day, I think that's why they're going to go ahead with the upside. And I am not a Justin Fields fan. I think Russell Wilson's a much better option. But young guy with legs, old guy, terrible Subway commercials. They're going to go with the young guy there. But Russell Wilson is going to be back with the Raiders. I already called it. Now, last but not least, Chris, I know we went over on that. Let's go again. Garrett, Myles Garrett. Obviously, he's already let the Browns know that he will not be coming back with them. Myles Garrett is essentially the premier pass rusher in the league. You can say Hutchinson, you can say a couple of different guys, but ultimately, premier pass rusher. Where is he playing next year?
I'm actually glad that you saved him for last as far as what we have of topics, because this is a very complicated situation. It's a lot more complicated than people even probably can see on the surface, because on the one hand, like, let's talk about the contract. The contract, you're talking about $20 million roughly this year, then $25 million roughly next year. And from a cap space perspective, the Browns don't want to trade him because they will owe more negative cap space by trading him.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get ugly.
What the Browns want to do is they want to re-sign and trade him so they can save on the cap space. But then what team is going to want to pay that? Because it's not $25 million anymore, folks. It's going to be about $35 million. Mm-hmm. So, again, this is like a Russian roulette game that these two, the franchise and the player, are going to be doing this. And then the other question is, Johnny, what are you trading for, right? Let's just look at history real quick. Khalil Mack was like, what, 1, 2, 3 first-round picks. Jamal Adams, first-round picks, third-round pick. And then Jalen Ramsey was 2 first-round picks. So what is it going to take as a franchise to take on the $35 million of debt and the draft picks? People keep throwing out the Commanders. I think the money line says that he's going to go to the Commanders. But you know what? If I'm Myles Garrett, after the years of being in Cleveland, I'm not going to trust a one-hit wonder. No offense to the Commanders and the Commanders. Don't do it, Garrett. Don't do it. Don't go to the Commanders. I know that you don't really control it. You know where he needs to go?
Where's he? I know where he's going to go.
The Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are creating cap space. Okay, I'm glad you're laughing. As of right now, the Bengals have today, without doing anything, $47 million in cap space right now.
Okay.
They've got to re-sign their players.
100%.
And they've got the cap space right now to do it. This is before restructuring and clearing contracts. Mm-hmm. They can clear up close to $100 million in cap space this coming season. I've doing caprate.com, about 90-something million dollars. So if you're ready to win now, everybody always talks about the Bengals, about them being a team that, man, the first few seasons they started off slow. Man, if they could just get that one big break, they're always making runs. And if I had to choose Myles Garrett between the Commanders and the Bengals, as long as they re-sign their people, again, asterisk, they re-sign their people, man, I'd go to the Bengals, Myles Garrett, and I'd go there. I'm not gonna get what I want. I'm not gonna get my wet dream, which would be for him to be a Buccaneer. So I'm not gonna. This year, I'm not gonna. I'll be honest about it. It's wishful thinking.
You could have just said dream. Just so you know. You could have just said dream.
Wet dream's better. He should be a Bengal.
Listen, when it comes to Myles Garrett, yes, I was going to allude to everything you mentioned regarding the financials, but you did a great job of explaining all that. The Florida teams all need Myles Garrett.
Of course.
Every single one of them. But the same now, Tampa is not going to be able to because of the financials. This is not going to work out. They're going to move things, even though it'll drastically improve the defense. He's not going to go there because he's looking to go to get paid but compete for a championship. Jacksonville will pay him that, and they'll give up the picks. They have the money, and they have the capital to go, the draft capital to go ahead and give up there. He's not going to Jacksonville. Are you kidding me? Why the heck is he going to go from Cleveland to Jacksonville, even though they're willing to go and give that? Because I alluded to the fact that both Jacksonville and Miami need that. They need, all Florida teams need that that scoring defense.
Well, he's a game changer. Yeah,
so 100% that game changer is going to make those changes there, but they're not going there. So for me, you mentioned the Commanders, and I was thinking the exact same thing you were, to where I'm like, he's not going to trust them to go ahead and do that, not the Commanders. So for me, I see him, big powerhouse move. He's going to Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions match them up with Hutchinson is going to be insane. They actually do have them, and there's a little bit of room to go ahead and work with that. Obviously, Myles Garrett is not going to be able to. The Jacksonville Jaguars are going to pay you more. They're going to pay you more than the Detroit Lions. You're going to take a little bit of a hit, not a big hit. I see Myles Garrett taking a hit, so maybe not $35 million, but a high 20s, maybe $28, $29 million to go ahead per year to go and sign with a championship contender matched up with Hutchinson, the Detroit Lions, Myles Garrett. That's where he's going.
I'm going to stick with the Bengals. I mean, it's not a bad.
The Bengals.
Listen, moves can be done. Moves can be made, but don't sleep on the Bengals because ultimately they're a team that everyone knows from the AFC specifically can always come out and compete. And don't tell me that next year we don't have them in the playoffs because I can tell you right now I do. I have them. I expect them to be in the playoffs next season.
Dude, I had them in the Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. So it's not far fetched. And the thing about the Lions for me, Johnny, is ultimately, if you're trying to come back and to from what happened in the playoffs, it wasn't the front line. It was your injuries, which are coming back healthy. Though, Johnny. They're coming back healthy. Hutchinson will be back. So what you really need to address, in my opinion, if you're the Detroit Lions, is your offense. Your offense needs to be addressed.
Top offense in the league?
No, sir.
One of the top offenses in the league.
Remember, you lose your offensive coach. You lose your defensive coach. Don't forget where they're at now.
So did Philly.
Aside of your wide receiver and your tight end, that's it. Name another wide receiver for the Lions.
Still,
exactly. No, name another besides St. Brown and you got the tight end. So name another wide receiver for the Lions. It's not. I'm not trying to get you in a gotcha spot. They're either free agents. My point is they're either free agents, right? And they need it. They're not going to address it in the draft. That's my point.
You can easily address that in the draft. They're not going to go and do that. I think ultimately the money will be spent if they can get a Myles Garrett, Will Hutchinson back. That's going to go ahead and put them over the top. But the main problem with the Lions is still Campbell. So that's the issue. Guys, you're losing.
Tomato.
We had talked about this. They're losing their coordinators. We're going to finally find out if this kid's a coach or not. We're going to find out what he's about, if he's an actual coach. We saw, much as we like the dog Sirianni lost his coordinators, revamped, and they won the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give credit to one team, can expose that some guy can actually coach. We're going to find out if the Lions the Campbell's guy can actually coach. But I still see Myles Garrett. I don't see him with Cincinnati for one reason, Chris, is that Cincinnati doesn't like to spend money. They're still hesitant to pay. They still have to pay Chase. You know, they're still sampling. Maybe we're going to re-sign Higgins. There's different things in play here to where this is an ownership group that's just stingy. They've known to go ahead and not really pay max dollars. You really think they're going to go ahead and pay Myles Garrett? They're going to pay Chase? You know for sure Higgins ain't coming back. But still, I don't see it happening.
I'll answer that. Look who went on a publicity stunt during the Super Bowl. Burrow. Oh, he was very clear. Okay. He was very clear. He drew the line. So to your point, Johnny, I think they are. I think that they will. And if it's time to open the checkbook, the time is now. Because if they don't, then this time next year, we're going to be talking about where's Burrow going to go. Because that's what's going to happen next. So to your point, it's the Bengals' choice. Are you going to invest? And now is the time to open up. If you're going to open it up anyways, you're going to open up the checkbook. You might as well do it right.
They didn't.
That's all I'm saying.
They didn't do right by Carson Palmer, who was just as good as Burrow when he came into the league. And so he chose to retire than to come back and deal with the Bengals. So I don't see this ownership group seeing what they have, because they're going to see it as, well, you led our team to the Super Bowl with less. And so I don't see them constantly pushing. That's why, regardless, I have my team I root for, you have your team they root for, but I always respect ownership group in all sports, basketball, football, baseball, that is down to be like, you know what? Yes, we're going to make money, and I can probably make more money by doing this, but I want to win first. Profit second. And the Cincinnati Bengals are profit first, winning second. That's why I don't think they're going to make a move like Myles Garrett.
Well, I guess they have to prove me wrong. Listen, folks, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the show here at Florida Man Sports, look, I know the football season technically ended, but April is the draft. There's so much stuff going on during the offseason, so definitely here at Florida Man Sports, the NFL will take top ranks, if you will.
Yes.
And I just want to mention it now. I know we're going to talk about it a little later, but we are also trying to implement all Florida college football sports. Any comments about that, Johnny, as far as
we're looking forward to making sure you guys get all update news and information, things that you guys want to hear about regarding the University of Central Florida, University of Florida, Florida State University, and the University of Miami.
We're going to get our hands wet.
Oh, yeah. So you like that word, this show. All right. But it's going to be a great season coming up. We'll allude to it as we continue on. But, Chris, Chris, final words?
No. Thank you so much for tuning in. He's Johnny. I'm Christian, and we're out, y'all.
Later.